To create the story of our lives as beautifully as you have created the entire universe. Help us to recover our faith in the truth, in the silent voice of our sound moral character. We ask, O Creator, to manifest your love through us in every word we express, in every action we take. Help us to make every activity in our lives a ritual of love and joy. Let us use love as the material for creating the most beautiful story about your creation. O Creator, our hearts are filled with gratitude for the gift of life. Thank you for the awareness that you only create perfection, and because you created us, we believe in our own perfection. Help us to love ourselves unconditionally so that we can share our love with other humans and with all forms of life on this beautiful planet. Help us to create a world that will bring love, joy, and happiness to all humanity. Peace and blessings, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to Umoja here on Great Z 780 on your AM dial and zbviradio.com on the World Wide Web. Umoja means unity. To strive for and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and the race. Let us commit to unity for self-determination. To name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Let us commit to unity for collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together, and to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve those problems together. Let us commit to unity for cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own businesses and to profit from them together. Let us commit to unity of purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our own community in order to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness. Let us commit to unity for creativity, to always do as much as we can in every way that we can in order to live our unity and faith, to believe with all our heart in our God, each other, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggles. Let us commit to unity because unity is the key to our success. It gives me a lot of pleasure, my brothers and sisters. Welcome on Facebook, on you watching and listening on Facebook. Welcome to you as well. It gives me great pleasure to have with me the director of Asia House, Sister Elise Donovan. She was here for the FinTech. We had a great time at the FinTech. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. I know you're busy, but you're here on vacation, and that's good. You need a break.
Well, it's been work more than vacation, but it's always good to be home. It's always good to be among family, and it's always good to be in the BVI, no matter what time of the day it is or year.
That's true. I know how you feel about that. And how long were you away before you came in?
Well, I was here for Christmas. I,
Okay.
usually try, but I've been in the director of BVI House Asia for the last 4.5 years. So it's been a while.
That's good. Well, we hear the word or the term or the phrase or the name Asia House, thrown around for the most part nonchalantly. I don't think it means that much to us that we internalize it that well as something that's really significant. And it dawned on me that we actually know very little about it. We know we have a place in Hong Kong called Asia House, and it's over there supposed to be bringing us more financial services, but we really don't know that much about it. So I think that I thought to myself, while you're here, it would be a great opportunity for us to get some first-hand information about what's actually happening in Asia and what Asia House is all about. So what is Asia House all about?
Well, actually, it's called BVI House Asia.
Okay.
I think the name came from, we had, in 2002, we established BVI House London, where we actually own the house in London. And so the offices for BVI House is in the London office. Mm-hmm. So when we had the Hong Kong office, which is servicing the Asia-Pacific region, it was called BVI House Asia. Well, BVI House Asia was established in September 2013. It was to serve as the government's representative office in the entire Asia-Pacific region. Now, Asia-Pacific region is the fastest growing region in the world, and it has some of the highest growth rates, and it also it represents a significant percentage of the world's population, as well as the world's GDP, as well as the world's wealth. How is that significant for the BVI? BVI is in the financial services business, and more than 60% of the BVI's government revenues actually come from financial services. And according to the Capital Economics Report, which was put out last year by BVI Finance, 42% of BVI's global business actually originates from China and the Asia-Pacific region and the rest of the Asia-Pacific region. So that is quite significant. Before we had the Capital Economics Report, we estimated it was somewhere between 40 and 60%, but now we have more concrete figures that we can say definitively. We know that the beneficial owners of BVI companies, the people who do BVI business, whether it's in litigation or whether it's corporate services, whatever it is, that 42% of that business actually comes from the Asia-Pacific region, and specifically China, which includes Hong Kong and Macau, represent 35% of that business. So when you do the figures, you would see that 25 cents out of every dollar that the BVI gets in its treasury actually comes from the Asia-Pacific region, and specifically from China. And it was important for us to have a physical presence there. Of course, you will understand in the financial services industry, the market is becoming quite competitive. So we have to make sure that we don't rest on our laurels, that we up our game. And having a physical presence there means that we're able to interact with the practitioners, we're able to interact with clients who do BVI business, we're also able to interact with governments favorably. As I said, the competition is coming really tighter, and as well as, there are some perception issues which we have to address, and being able to be there physically and have that presence and have that interaction with the market, it shows us and it gives us an additional advantage that we wouldn't have. So the BVI House Asia, as the governmental representative office, does the diplomacy, but as well as, I would say 90% of my work is related to the financial services industry and working with practitioners who do BVI business, because most of the law firms or the corporate service providers that you have here, they have offices in Hong Kong as well. So, and a lot of the business is channeled from the Hong Kong office. That 42% of the business that BVI has is channeled through their Asia offices.
Okay, so that's, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 7 of my questions.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but that was a good explanation, and so this is of significant importance. So, what is your day like at this job? I mean, you interact. Can you walk us through? Like, you get up, you go to work in the morning, and what are some of the things that you do to facilitate us maintain our market share, and trying to grow it?
A lot of the work, as I said, 90% of the work is related to the financial services industry. So that will entail whether we put on our own seminars or we sponsor events such as the China Offshore Summit. We always have a presence there, whether it's in Shenzhen, Beijing, or Shanghai. We will always sponsor, and we have presentations. So I would sort of mobilize the experts, whether they be someone speaking on funds, whether it's someone is speaking on BVI companies, what are the BVI advantages, and they would represent us and speak on our behalf as to why you should continue to use the jurisdiction and why BVI is the jurisdiction of choice. The BVI is actually the leading offshore jurisdiction in the Asia-Pacific region. And this is not just me saying this or from anecdotal evidence. It's also based on reports that have been put out by Offshore 2020, which is a industry report that has been put out for the last 7 years. And in that report, it shows that BVI is the preferred jurisdiction, offshore jurisdiction, to do financial services business. So we've always been leading. And when you look at the World Investment Report, which is put out by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, they also showed statistics. They've stopped including the offshore centers now, but for the years when they used to, BVI was a significant contributor in terms of global trade. We're in the top 10 for outward foreign direct investment as well as inward foreign direct investment. And a large part of us being insignificant because you have this small, tiny country with a population of 30 plus thousand, having such a significance in terms of foreign direct investment flows globally. And why is that? That is because of our relationship with China. For many years, from 2006 to 2012, for example, when they used to include offshore, you would see that BVI was actually the second largest foreign direct investor into China, and it was significantly also for outward foreign direct investment as well. So BVI plays a significant role in terms of Chinese economy and its global economic strategy. So people use BVI vehicles, whether it's businesses, whether it's state-owned enterprises, or whether it's individuals. They prefer to use BVI vehicles because of their flexibility and because we have English common law, which provides legal and commercial certainty. It's affordable, it's easily acceptable, and we have a state-of-the-art Virgin system. So there are a number of advantages that we provide that the Asian market really find attractive, and it has made us the leading jurisdiction in China and the Asia market. So we are very pleased to be doing that. So I know I didn't go through for you on a day-to-day basis, but essentially it's thinking around that scope and trying to see how we can put forward that scope for BVI business in the market.
Okay. And the business is increasing all the time. How are we doing now? Is there any indication that things are slowing down? Or are we getting more and more companies investing or using our services from that region?
Well, what we've seen in the world market globally, things have changed. I think post the financial crisis, you saw a dip. So during the BVI's peak time, I think we were incorporating, say, about 60,000 companies a year. I think that average is down significantly, but that's a global, that's a global trend. But increasingly, business is changing. And one of the things we have to do is make sure that we are in the market, we know what the trends are, and we know what's happening in the market so that we can adjust to that. But in terms of business increasing, yes, over the we've had challenges, for example, the inability for BVI companies to open bank accounts. That was a major challenge, and it certainly has been one of the major impediments to us growing our business. And with Bank of Asia, we hope that will be rectified, and that now that the banks are being maybe more mitigated, more I won't say relaxed, but they're being more level-headed in terms of looking at risk and assigning risk and onboarding business. So it has impacted the business, but over the last half a year, and certainly after the hurricanes, I've gotten reports from the service providers, particularly when it comes to incorporation, that they've seen an uptick as far as business is concerned. To answer your question specifically, some have reported increases of 5%, and some have reported increase. One told me he had an increase of 56%. So generally, I think we're seeing an uptick. Of course, it's not up to peak numbers, but it's certainly encouraging to see that there's an uptick in business, and we hope that upward trajectory will continue.
Okay. It is being said that the regulations imposed on us by the international community, OECD and others, is responsible, more responsible for the downturn in our financial services growth. Is that how true is that? And if there's an uptick, what are we attributing that to?
I think there are a number of factors that contribute, but one in I think it was at the beginning of at 2012, the end of 2012, as you may know, HSBC, which is probably one of the largest in terms of global banks and the landscape in terms of its reach. And they certainly have a large presence in the Asia market and the dominant bank in the Asia market. That bank was fined $1.92 billion by the U.S. Regulators. And so, they started to mitigate the risk more stringently. And that included, trying to de-risk. And unfortunately, we, as some would say, we were a victim of our own success because, if they say, for example, that if a transaction that is filed and it has three jurisdictions on it, so that transaction that is being formed in the BVI, but it also has a relation with Hong Kong, and it has a relation with New York, and it has a relation with London, already it gets not a suspicious but a transaction report, a suspicious activity report, a suspicious transaction report, and so that is filed, and so the numbers increase. It doesn't mean that there's any illegitimacy taking place in that transaction. It means that that's the criteria that they've set, and because of the nature of BVI's global business, we raised in terms of the risk profile. So we've seen as a result of that, and the other banks started putting, because they were also fined, I think collectively the banks have been fined billions of dollars, and so they've all started to de-risk. As you see right here in the Caribbean, a number of the banks have lost their correspondent banking relationships. That means that when they want to do trade in BVI, in U.S. dollars, they can't do it, or when they want to transfer money, they can't do it because they need those correspondent banking relationships. And so if there's de-risking, so when how that has affected us is that when people who have a BVI company and they go to one of these banks and they said, I want to open a bank account, because if you have a company, you want to open a bank account, then they can't get it done. Then it says, why should I go with this jurisdiction? Why should I have this company? So it's certainly a situation that we needed to address.
So that's one of the regulations that has impacted us.
Yes.
Okay. And coming to the big question, is there a fair going through our clientele in Asia regarding the law that was just passed by the UK, the Money Laundering Act that imposed us publishing beneficial ownership?
Having public registries of beneficial ownership.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that the Asia market really values is privacy and confidentiality. And this is a legitimate business practice because you have a business or you have an account, even your personal account, you don't want your financial information or all your information accessible to the public or everybody. It doesn't mean that you're involved in any illegitimate activity. As a matter of fact, the requirements, when you look at the requirements, BVI complies with the Financial Action Task Force, which is the global body which looks at anti-money laundering. We comply with the OECD, which looks at tax information exchange and so forth. So we comply with all these international standards. But nonetheless, there's a perception that, jurisdictions are just tax haven, which is not the case. And so the proponents of, public registries, whether they be UK parliamentarians or they be non-governmental organizations, they have an agenda and they have a perception. And unfortunately, we have not been able to change that perception. So they lobby very hard to get this public registry because they believe that having public registry is going to be the answer. But it's not. We have put systems in place. Like, for example, we have a beneficial ownership secure cert system, which we call BOSS. And that system allows U.S. regulators or U.S. competent competent authorities to request information on BVI companies, and in some cases they can get it within an hour. If necessary, they can get it within 24 hours. And that system is working based on the authorities here who deal with the system and deal with the UK authorities. And it's searchable from competent authorities here. Whereas the UK, for example, has a public registry, but it's not verifiable. So somebody can put a false name. They can put a 2-year-old, which has been done, and the information is not verifiable. But our information is verifiable, so that any company that is incorporated in the British Virgin Islands has to go through a registered agent. And that registered agent is required by law and regulation to make sure that they do due diligence on any customer that they're onboarding. And if the customer, for example, has any political affiliations or anything, then they're deemed to be a politically exposed person, and they have to do enhanced customer due diligence. So there are a number of checks and balances and regulations that we have in place that shows that we comply. And when you look at all the international standards, our compliance rating is the same as the United Kingdom, it's the same as the United States, it's the same as Hong Kong, it's the same as Singapore. So our compliance rating with international standards is on par. But that's not the perception of the people in the UK or the parliamentarians who are making the decisions. So, and it's hard for us to get out this information in the biased media. But as I said before, the clients in Asia value confidentiality and privacy, and we have to make sure that we provide that service that they value, and they don't want their information on public registries because there are a number of risk factors. It's not saying they're doing something illegitimate or nefarious that they have to hide. It's saying that I personally want my information to be kept. I'm a private person, and I'm entitled to confidentiality in my business and private affairs. It's my right. It's a basic right. And as such, I would like to maintain that confidentiality and that privacy with that matters. And that now is being threatened because in Asia, there are people who kidnap people and hold them for ransom. And it's almost, I would say, bi-monthly. There's something going on with somebody holding a rich person and demanding from their family's money. So if people don't know your wealth or your assets, then they're less likely to come in. And so there are valid reasons why people want their information to be kept, and they don't want it spread across publicly so that everybody can be exposed to it.
It puts your very life and your family life at risk.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And we are unable to convince the NGOs and the parliamentarians that this is really not necessary, considering all that we have in place. What do you think that they want? Is it that they think that by having that public registry, they would be able to collect more of their tax dollars? I mean, I'm trying to understand what is the motive behind.
That's the rhetoric that is said. You know, the rhetoric is always that there are billions of dollars in taxes being lost. But I reference the Capital Economics report, which was produced by Capital Economics out of London, which is BVI's global contribution. And in that report, it says BVI mediates $1.5 trillion US dollars. And we have a contribution, I forgot the figures, but we contribute in taxes and BVI companies, we contribute billions globally. So when you actually look at the reality, and if they were objective, you know, I'm a student of journalism. And so I understand that the journalism that we see is not objective. It is biased. It is unfair. And we have parliamentarians, non-governmental organizations that don't do any independent research or study or analysis, and they just regurgitate each other's information and each other's rhetoric. But that doesn't mean that it's correct. It just means that we have to do more in terms of winning the battle of information, winning the battle of ideas, winning the battle of getting people convinced to look at the facts, because I think if people look at the facts, if they look at the capital economics report, if they look at our compliance rating with international standards, if they look at our BOSS system, if they look at all the structures that we have in place, or anti-money laundering laws or anti-money laundering regulations, then they will have no other recourse but to come to the conclusion that we are probably one of the most upstanding and upright jurisdictions in the offshore financial services industry.
Are we able to convince the Asian region that we will not publish beneficial owners unless it becomes a global standard?
Well, certainly, well, it's not. We're now in August, so in June, I was going to say just last month, we were on a trade, we had the premier and delegation on a BVI Asia trade mission. And that was one of the messages we collectively carried throughout. We went to 5 cities on Asia. We were in Hong Kong, then we went to Singapore, then we went to Beijing, we went to Hangzhou, and then we concluded in Shanghai. And of course, we saw a continued appetite for BVI business. And I want to say this, I know it's probably coming up in one of your questions. There's a real strong appetite for BVI business, and they really do love and appreciate us. And I'm not just saying that for promotion's sake, and it's experience, and it shows and demonstrated experience, and demonstrated because BVI and the Chinese have a way of thinking. If something has proven successful, if you see a big Chinese, business person who has a lot of wealth, and they're using BVI companies, it sets the stage. Well, other people are going to say, well, okay, that's a formula that I want to copy. And a lot of the Chinese wealthy and the knowledgeable people have used BVI business companies. So everybody wants to emulate success. And so BVI has been proven successful for the last 30 years for them. So that's a recipe for success. BVI equates to success in their minds. So they want to continue to duplicate success. They're going to use BVI because that's a method for success. So in anything, any business you're getting into, in anything, and I don't want to use the word superstitious, but there are certain things that the Chinese like. And so, when they see that, for example, there's anecdotal story about how, our registry was open on 8 August 1988, because the Chinese consider 8 a lucky number, and the number of companies that were incorporated on that day. And so they were proven to be successful. And so people want to emulate success. So they're going to go with the jurisdiction that has proved successful, and that is the BVI. So
it's
the
a
Asians,
cultural thing for them.
Yes, the cultural orientation is to emulate success, and BVI has been proven successful for the Asia and the Chinese market.
Okay. But so you don't get an indication that they're as concerned as, say, we are about the
well, one of
publishing.
there are a number of things.
Are they saying anything about it? Are they
Well,
saying? Are you hearing anything
there are a
about
number
it?
of things. I was actually in London with Mrs. Lorna Smith when the thing was passed in the UK Parliament, and of course it was the biggest conversation. We were all stressed out. We were having conference calls. We were talking to each other and trying to come up with strategies and how we. So we were alarmed. So I went back to Hong Kong from London, and I landed at 2:00, and I called a meeting with my BVI Asia team. This is all the practitioners, a core of practitioners that work in the Asia market at 5:00. So my plane landed at 2:00, and I had my meeting at 5:00.
This is AM or afternoon?
In the afternoon.
Okay.
Nobody's going to do it. It was at 2:00 in the morning. And it was because of the hysteria that we had just experienced coming out of London, and our reaction to it and being in the midst of it.
It scared the life out of you, right?
So I went, I was like, I got to speak to my, the Asian constituents and see what's happening in the market. And so I have this meeting now at 5:00. I so probably went home, took a shower, and went straight back to the office and had this meeting. And not one word of this UK decision had been covered in the Asia market. It wasn't covered in Hong Kong. It wasn't covered anywhere else in Asia, in Singapore, and it wasn't covered, of course, in China. China, the good thing about China is that it has media control. That's a euphemistic way of putting it.
Yes.
So Chinese government has media control. So they allow information to come in that they want to come in, and they keep information out that they want to come out. And this is not something that they wanted to come in. And that sometimes works to our advantage, because a lot of these things, whether Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, UK, whatever the UK is doing, it doesn't get covered by the Chinese media because their media controls, communication control. So the concerns were not as much in the Asia market, and what the practitioner said to me was, that's the way we want to keep it, so you don't go putting out anything. Subsequently, there was some trickle of concerns, of course, because things started coming in, and we just put out the statement that the Premier said, which is we will have it when it becomes a global standard. And that has been the position that we've maintained all these years. And he said, that position has not changed. And so that is what we communicated to the Asia practitioners. And they, in turn, if they had any concerns coming from their clients, were able to convey that message to their clients as well. So
that's smooth things out for a while.
So the hysteria, or the concerns, I should say, and I'm sorry for using that word, but the concerns were not as much in Asia. But it's certainly, they do not want public registries. And it's something that, like I said, it's not favored in the Asian market. And we don't want to be put at a disadvantage until it becomes a global standard. Because what is being asked of us is not being asked of other jurisdictions. It's being asked of the overseas territories, but the Crown dependencies, which are also under the UK government, are not being asked to have public registries. Any other of our competitor jurisdictions are not being asked to have public registries. And I've been in positions where, even before this, they have taken advantage, and they have started taking advantage, because I've been in public forums sitting down there. They're like, we're sovereign and independent nations, and nobody can tell us what to do, but they're telling them what to do, and they're going to have. So you come and bring your business over here, because nobody can tell us what to do.
So they're already attacking our share.
Well, we are going to continue to put up that defense. Work as hard.
I know, but they nonetheless.
They're already trying to get an advantage of that. So what we have been trying to communicate to the proponents of this and the UK government is that we want to make sure that, if it has to happen, let it be a global standard. So we don't get first movers disadvantage, because, in business there's first mover advantage, there's also first mover disadvantage. Yeah. And so if you push us ahead, then there's
it's clearly discriminatory. I mean, but, you don't have to say it, but
I want to get back to the point and sort of talk more about. Sort of get away from that, because I know you've talked about that extensively with other people, but just to get an appreciation of how much we should value the Asia market, and how much they've stuck with us, how much China has stuck with us, and the kind of loyalty and business appreciation that we've seen from the Chinese market, that I don't think we've seen it from anywhere else. And people, because of our westernized perceptions, we really don't have an appreciation for how, like my article says, which side our bread is buttered on, and how grateful we are to be to the Chinese. One of the things is, I've been working. And stop me if you want to ask something else, because it's to see that the respect and the appreciation that the Chinese have for us. And it's at all levels. It's at the business levels, it's at the government levels, it's at the individual level. And I think that's not an appreciation, and we don't appreciate that. But being there for the last 4.5 years, I really appreciate that.
All right, cool. Now, what I wanted, the only question about the beneficial ownership that I want to ask again, and after I'm going to get off of that, is whether you knew because that's a question that we are asking, whether you can speak to, and you may not be able to, and perhaps I doubt you'll be able to, but I'll just ask anyway, whether what can be some of the consequences of us refusing to publish the registry.
Okay, that's not a question I can competently answer, so I will go on to the next question.
Yeah, because that's something I need to know now.
And I'm sure the government is looking into it, and it's something that
they have to study.
Yeah, because we have we're strategic. We don't just come out and say things, but I think we are strategic in terms of our decision making and looking into the future and looking at the ramifications, looking at all the possible outcomes. But we also have to make sure, and this is something that I've seen the Premier and other colleagues do, is we want to make sure that we do what is in the interest of the British Virgin Islands. What is in the interest? What is in the economic interest of the British Virgin Islands? What's in the political interest of the British Virgin Islands? But to make sure that at the end of the day, we are the only ones who are defending us. And I have confidence that we are going to look and make sure we make the decisions that puts the BVI in the best possible light.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of talk about, from Asia, from China particularly, about the Belt and Road Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at that, and I expect that the success of the Belt and Road Initiative is going to mean additional financial services that we need to provide to facilitate the global trade that's going to engender. So I want you to just, if you can, talk a little bit about what that is so that we get a clearer understanding of what the Belt and Road Initiative is and how we can participate in that and what that means for us, for our economic development and for us, for our financial services growth.
Okay. I guess to put it in a capsule, back in the day, they used to have trade routes, and they would, what did they use? I think it was camels or whatever, and they traded with silk and other things. So that road, and it went through Asia, Africa, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And it would be the boats as well. So we call it the Silk Road. Mm-hmm. So it was a route, a trade-in
route. So that's where the road comes from.
Yes, mm-hmm. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. So that's it in a nutshell, the trade-in route. So this is the modern-day version of
that trade-in route.
Of the trade-in route. Mm-hmm. So initially they started with, they call it the Belt and Road, and initially they started with, I think, 176 countries that were going to be a part of and that includes Africa, Asia, and some European countries as well, that were going to be a part of the Belt and Road. And it's the largest macroeconomic undertaking in this decade. It is certainly Chinese way. China is supporting globalization. They're supporting global trade. Economic globalization. They have a global strategy. They have been reaching out in the world economically, particularly they've done work in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and to develop these trades, seeing how economic globalization and trade has actually increased or decreased poverty. Have taken countries out of, as we say, out of grinding poverty. And it has created wealth in China. We've seen the middle class grow. China has, I think, a GDP of 6.7%. No other country, the U.S., for example, has been like...
But it's at four now, they say.
Yeah, but, it
yes.
went up.
Yeah, it went up. Yeah,
So
it's been at 2 for a long time, yeah. And
Yeah,
I don't even think that England has the UK has a 1% growth.
So the largest growth region has been Asia, and China has one of the largest GDP growth rates. So now China has opened up this Belt and Road Initiative is part of that strategy for China to increase the infrastructure globally, and it works mutual beneficial. It's mutually beneficial because what we've seen traditionally, and this is, I guess, getting to the that we have about.
Because we are saying that China is colonizing Africa and is colonizing are the new colonizers. They're colonizing the Caribbean, and there's a lot of really nasty information coming out. They say they control the whole of Jamaica now, and and they're turning Africans into slaves. I mean, there's some really horrendous information coming out.
There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of false information. And I wish sometimes that we as human beings, we spend a lot of time, like I said, and I referred back to what the NGOs and maybe the parliamentarians doing. We, instead of doing our own research or in getting ourselves informed, we go and we listen to rhetoric and we regurgitate it because it's easy, it's accessible, we can watch a video in 5 minutes and hear somebody who parachute into a country and say, I was discriminated against the Chinese. Let me tell you this. I have traveled with the BVI government in negotiations. We've done countries whether it's France, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, several countries throughout Europe, and countries in Asia and elsewhere, and even in Latin America. And the kind of hospitality, and I'm not exaggerating, the kind of hospitality and diplomacy and respect that we get from China at the senior levels and at the junior levels, they roll out the red carpet. Roll out the red carpet for our premier. Our premier, when he walks into any Chinese city, he's viewed as a celebrity. Everybody wants to take a picture. That doesn't happen in Europe. That doesn't happen when we go to the United Kingdom. That doesn't happen when we go to France. It doesn't happen when we go to the United States. It doesn't. That kind of diplomacy and that treatment, that red carpet treatment, the premier gets overwhelmed with presents. They all want presents. They all want to give gifts. And I think the last meeting we had in Shanghai, they literally put a red carpet on the floor because they respect this is a head of state. They didn't care that he's coming from a tiny dot in the Caribbean. This is a head of state. We give them respect. We don't get that kind of respect that the Chinese give anywhere else. And I've seen it, and I say that unequivocally. The kind of respect that the Chinese show us, the friendship, their friendliness, and the kind of red carpet treatment that they roll out, we don't get that anywhere else that I've seen us interacting with.
Okay.
Than in China. And the only where else that I've experienced that personally, and I shouldn't say that because this was a personal, trip. I get that red carpet treatment in places like Nigeria. People will be surprised to hear that. But we get red carpet treatment in China at the official and governmental levels that we don't. And now another thing in terms of the kind of paternalism, condescension, and patronizing that you see that is brought from the West to countries like ourselves who are considered insignificant. We never get that. You will never hear the Chinese President Xi Jinping talking about shithole countries or talking about you need to, you have diluted your culture by bringing in immigrants. Those kind of rhetoric and that kind of thing will never be spewed by President Xi Jinping, because you know why? They treat people with respect and dignity, and I've seen it firsthand. The Chinese treat people with respect and dignity, and so, you have to be you have to be interrogate. Going back to the whole thing about enslavement and so forth. One of the things is that when you look at history, and I'm a student of economic history and international relations, and what we've seen in terms of the multilateral institutions, funding institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, and the amount of debt and debt cycle and debt slavery that countries have been in. We just had the Haitian president, for example, just resign. Why? Because they were forcing austerity measures on them, which means that you have to take away education, you have to take away social services, you have to take away all the things that your people require, need. These are not wants. These are things that the people that they need. You have to take them away so that you can pay the debt to these institutions and these foreign countries, because it's more important for them to pay the debt. So you are paying, you're not paying the debt. You're not paying the principal. You're just paying the interest. And so this is the kind of treatment that the West has given to Africa. This is the kind of treatment that the West have given to Caribbean countries. Now, we in 2018, it is the onus and responsibility is on us to determine how we are going to interact and engage with any country. If this advanced age, if we are not able to sit across from the table with the Chinese and negotiate better interaction and engagement, then it's on us. We are doing something irresponsible. But what I'm seeing from the Chinese, they don't tie their aid or their economic assistance, it's not tied to, you got to starve your people for the next 5 years. And they make sure, but when they leave, their roads in Jamaica, right? All across Africa, there's infrastructure. What has been left by Western multilateral institutions? I'm sorry, I'm probably getting political. I'm going to step away from this discussion now, because I might get a call from one of my superiors and say, why did you go there? So
I'm being terrorized by the clock too.
So I'm going to step away from that discussion.
I see you're worse than me. I met my mess. But
anyway, but the bottom line is, I just want us to interrogate any information that we get. It doesn't matter whether it's about the Chinese or whoever. One of the things that you have to do, Carter G. Woodson said, when you control a person's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions because his education makes it necessary. And Bob Marley says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And I'm talking to, I know who I'm talking to, so this is
all right.
So,
you know what? I don't want to get you in no trouble. So. Okay. But are we going to be able to make some money from the Belt and Road Initiative? I mean,
well, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think BVI is poised, as I said. Success likes success and to emulate success. So the Belt and Road is providing numerous opportunities for us. BVI is involved in global trade and investment, and the use of BVI companies, which are used for cross-border trade and investment. So we are going to have the most massive globalized trade taking place in the world. And they need neutral structures. They need structures which are neutral and that have legal and commercial certainty, that are affordable, flexible, and accessible. And that's BVI company. So yes, and we also have the new micro business company, which is also another new vehicle for them to use. So yeah, we have opportunities.
So you have opportunity.
Yes, and I was told to plug that, the BVI House Asia, the director of BVI House Asia job is available. It's a wonderful job. It's a wonderful opportunity.
You quit it?
Yeah, and the BVI House Asia, BVI London office director job is also available, and both of those jobs are being advertised. They're wonderful opportunities. I think we need to get more people into international affairs and to get people exposed. We need to be able to sit across from tables and have discussions with people on any level. We need to get people out there in international
But isn't that too
arena.
soon, though? I mean, is that too soon for y'all to be leaving you and Benito to be leaving those critically important jobs to our growth, development, and success? I mean, it's got to be difficult to find two persons as competent as you and Benito Wheatley.
Yeah, Benito is awesome, and I think we were fortunate, to have chosen the fields. We were fortunate.
You were chosen for the fields, right?
We were fortunate to have chosen
Almighty appointed you to the field, right?
To study international affairs, and it's certainly a wonderful field, and we would encourage more people. And I know Benito will support me on this. And yes, unfortunately, he had to, to leave the London office, and I'm going to be going there temporarily until the end of the year. So that's why I say and then I'll be coming back to BVI Finance. But we're, actively they're looking for persons.
Two replacements.
Yeah, two replacements. So, Benito is a tremendous person,
Yeah, I mean, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been fussing, and I mean to rise by the clock. We've been fussing lately about the visa waiver for the Chinese.
Yes.
And I mean, we've gone as far as saying the Chinese gonna come and take control of the territory, and we're gonna lose all our businesses. And when they get in, they just take. Some most horrendous things. And so, I want you to talk, if you can, tell me about the visa waiver and what that actually means and what's involved in it.
Several things. The Chinese is the largest travelers right now. I think since 2012, they said there's 135. The Chinese make 135 million trips
a year.
Trips a year, and they spend millions and millions of dollars.
200 and something billion dollars.
Billion dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which astute tourist destination wouldn't want to get a piece of that tourism market?
So it's me not the BVI.
Which smart tourism-oriented jurisdiction, country wouldn't want to get in, wouldn't want to have people who are traveling
just a million of them.
in numbers and spending in numbers millions of money. Can you imagine if we were to get that kind? Let me get through the reasons. Now to market, we can go market in Europe, we can go market in the United States. I don't think there are any sort of regulatory controls. China has controls in a number of areas. So you can't just get up and say, I'm going to market my tourism product in China. You have to go through a process. And that process is you have to get what is called approved destination status. Now, the BVI government applied to the Chinese government to get approved destination status. And once we get that approved destination status, we'll be able to send people in there to market our tourism product, and then we'll have Chinese come in here to marketers to see whether they want to bring groups here. The Chinese are going in cruises. We spend a lot of money on our ports. We want people to utilize I mean, of course, we don't want them to come all at the same time, but we want part of the market. They're going to other Caribbean destinations. They've actually done direct cruises from China. I think there was one from Shanghai straight to Jamaica. Why wouldn't BVI want to capitalize on that? Come on, tell me why. And they're spending a lot of money. They're traveling. They're exploring the world because they're gaining wealth. The fastest wealth growth, ultra high net worth individuals are coming out of China, and the BVI wants to do that. So we have to demonstrate to the Chinese government that we are willing. So by giving this visa-free access for tourist and business purposes. And by the way, the Chinese also, because of the use of BVI companies, they also have to come here to sometimes litigate in our commercial court. So, any ease of access that we can have to facilitate that. So we're not doing that for business as well as we're doing it for tourism purposes. It will help us a great deal. So it's a win-win situation.
So they're not come in and buy up our property without land
Oh, no,
license
no. I mean,
and
like,
open businesses.
I mean,
give out
anybody
trade
that comes into this country will only do what we allow them to do. So we have to be in a position to say what we will allow and not we will allow. And I think we are smart enough, we are mature enough that we are not just going to let anybody come in and do what we want to do. And if anybody who is about to do that, well, we have an electoral system where we know how to.
We have to get rid of that government, right? Woo, yes. Let me talk to my engineer for a second. How are we coming with the Gospel Fest? Do we have any more time over 8 o'clock? You don't know, but yeah, we we're literally out of time, and there's so much more to discuss. Did you learn the language? How many of them speak English? They speak English mostly?
You see, this is another thing we have to understand, and this is one of the things that we have to become more adept internationally. The Chinese are very astute. I had a Chinese assistant, and he not only learned English, but he could speak English like an American. As a matter of fact, when I took him to China, the Chinese thought he was what they call an ABC, American-born Chinese, because of the way he speaks. So I said, well, how did you learn to speak? He's like, I watched movies and television, but he also studied translation. Mm-hmm. So he learned not only the language, but he learned to be eloquent in it. So he learns English, he learned French, and that's it. The Chinese government is in primary school teaching people English. So, I mean... Because
that's a concern we have here.
Yeah.
You bring them here and then you can't understand them, and then that's another problem.
No. So it's incumbent on us to start learning Chinese. And I thought the Minister of Education had mentioned that he was interested in having that as well. Mm-hmm. And they're interested in... through the Confucius Institute in teaching people Chinese and culture. In terms of... you talked about the cultural stuff earlier. That's the one thing America has in terms of soft power. Soft power in the sense that we have more American or Western cultural entertainment, songs, mm-hmm. and so forth. Their
culture permeates the world.
Well, yeah, their culture permeates the world,
yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you will see. We also eat Chinese food, but it's not the real Chinese food over here. Yeah. But the one thing that I see, when I hear people talking about China, I was like, every Chinese city that I've gone to, what do I see? Western luxury brands, all the stores, Louis Vuitton, you name them, mm-hmm. they're all there. Hermes, they're big, and the Chinese are buying them. And then on top of that, everywhere you go, there's a McDonald's, there's a Starbucks, there's a KFC. So I'm like, who should be a concern about which culture and so forth, because you're getting the Chinese to eat fried chicken and Big Macs.
And Big Macs.
And drink coffee.
Well, that's, you give me an earful. So you miss home?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely. One of the things is I have my family. We get together every Sunday, and they've been tremendous. And when I was leaving, they had a picture, and they took a picture, and they sent to me, and I had it in my office, and the kids were like this, and now the kids are like this, and I'm looking up and like.
Who are you?
The voices have broken and stuff, and they're all college graduation, high school.
You miss that whole portion of their life.
You're missing out a lot, and Mom says it's time to come home.
It's like being in the army, right?
Yeah,
you're doing service to your country. You have to neglect the family for a while.
Yeah,
so
it's been a wonderful opportunity. It's been a wonderful service. So I really want to encourage, people to get into the field and to avail themselves of the opportunity, and consider studies in diplomacy and international affairs, and because we need more people than Elise and Benito.
That's true. Well, listen, thank you for coming by. You know, I really appreciate all the work that you've done and really educating us this evening, I think, about really what's going on in Asia and the importance of Asia to the BVI development. And we appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, the pleasure's been mine, really. Umoja has brought you the kind compliments of CCT BVI Life Unlimited, Medicare, your one-stop medical facility. Clarence Thomas Limited has the best products for the lowest prices, period. Profe's Farms, they bring you royal quality chicken and fresh local eggs. The fresh produce of Movine's Garden of Eden can be found every Friday at Craft Alive. Movine's Garden of Eden brings you fresh seasonings, fruits, vegetables, and ground provisions from Mother Earth straight to your table. Ocean Conversion remains a locally owned continuous flow of water for more than 25 years. And Mellow Moose Cafe, they keep you in that mellow mood with that great vegetarian food from Mellow Moose Cafe. The African Studies Club meets there every Tuesday at 7 p.m., so join the African Studies Club and learn about your African self. We're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors and come back and wrap things up in a minute.
Who said that vegetarian food has to be bland and tasteless? Have lunch at Mellow Moose Cafe and it tastes the difference. Mellow Moose Cafe's vegetarian cuisine has variety. It's tasty and also good for you. With Mellow Moose Cafe's variety of homemade drinks, desserts, affordable prices, family atmosphere, it's like going to lunch. Mellow Moose Cafe is on Living Street right next to Movie Heart Barbershop. Call 1-844-646-63 and have your lunch ready when you get there. Ask Mellow Moose Cafe to your healthy lifestyle and keep that Mellow Moose with great vegetarian food from Mellow Moose Cafe.
Very clear.
You almost get me into the radicals.
I mean, that's how we feel. I didn't say this. I was like, I was saying myself. Everybody self. Because we don't understand these things. We really don't understand these things. And we need to stimulate the task.
Materials, plywoods, nails, screws, galvalume, lumber, paint, electrical and plumbing materials, plus all your boot supplies like paper towels, Clorox wipes, tables, chairs, lights, picnic tables, pots, pans, and much more. In addition to the boot owner's package, CTL is offering everyone emancipation savings of up to 20% off on selected items in all the stores. See our flyers on Facebook and join our CTL customer group for more information. We are thankful for recovery, our emancipation, and the signs of normalcy returning to our islands after Hurricane Irma. Clarence Thomas Limited Home Center, the best products at the lowest prices, period. Happy Festival!
CTL Home Center is offering additional festival savings of 20% off all Valspar and Dutch Boy paints until August 12th.
Ocean Conversion BVI Limited, a local water production company, was established in 1991 and was purchased in 1996 by a visionary group of BVI Islanders who recognized the importance of pooling their resources for BVI ownership of our vital resources. As a good corporate citizen, Ocean Conversion, along with other BVI Investment Club affiliated companies, have given back in excess of $75,000 annually for sponsorships of various community events, scholarships, and schools. Through all of the adversities Ocean Conversion has faced recently, it still continues to practice good corporate citizenship while delivering to the people of the British Virgin Islands an uninterrupted supply of potable water, which exceeds international quality standards. Ocean Conversion, a locally owned company, providing a continuous flow of water for over 20 years.
CCT has deals, amazing deals on phones. Phones like the Samsung J1. Get a brand new Samsung J1 Prime Mini for only $100. CCT will even put a hero plan on for you. So that's a brand new phone plus 2 gigabytes of data, unlimited worldwide texting, for only $100. Stop into CCT today and get on board with the best and most reliable telecommunications service provider in the BVI. CCT, Life Unlimited.
As we celebrate our annual emancipation, let us take time to reflect and remember our forefathers whose values to persevere and endure continue to exemplify in our lives. The management and staff of Medicure delight in wishing you all a happy and safe celebration. As we continue to rebuild and reshape our lives and communities, let us turn recent trials into possibilities through collective efforts towards a better future, a future that will leave a legacy for those following. Based on our commitment to better health care, Medicure stands behind quality and service. Our full-service pharmacy and dedicated staff will provide you every prescription need, and what's not at hand may be special ordered. We are currently operating from our Roatan and Virgin Water locations, with reopening pending at the Pier Park. Restore and revive our cultural scene. BVI Strong for Festival 2018. We wish you all a wonderful festival from all at Medicure.
Profe's Farm now brings you royal quality in chicken. Get fresh chicken that is of best quality from Profe's Farm. Our chickens are homegrown and fed with the finest feed, which is free from growth hormones, antibiotics, and other hazardous chemicals. Yes, folks, that's Profe's chickens, as natural as you can get. Call us at 496-7190 and have your chicken delivered, or you can pick up your chicken at our processing plant in Paraquita Bay. Look for the specially marked labels in your local supermarkets. Your health depends on it. Profe's Farm brings you royal quality in chicken.
Welcome back to Umoja, and we said 17 AM. I have had a fantastic conversation with Sister Elise Donovan. She's the director of the Asia House, the
BVI House Asia.
BVI House Asia. Fascinating conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. We've been terrorized by the clock. The Gospel Fest is up next. So just let me say, with our Creator's divine and dwelling spirit in control of our minds, we'll achieve unity within ourselves. Unity within ourselves will enable us to achieve unity with each other. Unity enables us to grow spiritually, socially, and economically, because unity is the key to our success. I'm Edjuenka. Love your brothers and your sisters as you would love yourself. Peace and blessings.